Okay, everybody, we'll go ahead and kind of get this meeting going here. Madison County, and I'm sure in Galvin County, we always do the pledge before we do start the meeting. So, begins for better lack of a flag. I have a flag up here on my cell phone, so we'll do the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with justice. Thank you. Thank you for that. That said, I guess we'll do the meeting that we're at 9:03. We'll do the roll call. I guess it's basically introduction. So we'll start with Kevin
Germain, Big Sky Resort Area District.
Jennifer Boyer, Gallatin County Commission.
Dan Allhands, Madison County Commissioner Chairman.
Michelle Kondorski, Big Sky Resort Area District.
Bill Todd, Madison County Commission.
Grace Young, Big Sky Resort Area District.
Zach Broom, Gallatin County Commission.
Sarah Blechta, Big Sky Resort Area District.
Scott Farley, Gallatin County Commission. John Zergel, Big Sky Resort Area District.
Okay, thank you everyone for that. One thing, Mr. Nye could not be here today. Commissioner Nye from Madison County have some personal reasons. We'll go on to item B on the agenda. Any public comment? Any public comment? Okay, hearing none. On to item C on the agenda, regular agenda, old business. First item is MDT presentation, optimization plan, Montana Department of Transportation. Is that a microphone player? Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. I'll be presenting on the 191 optimization plan. There was a corridor study a couple years back where we looked at the corridor of 191 and potential projects that would come from that to improve safety, capacity, etc. Ended up being an insurmountable amount of money. So what we ended up looking at was what was called this optimization plan. And that's looking at areas that were targeted within the corridor study where we get the best bang for our buck for improvements along the corridor and nominated projects that yielded from that. So just opening this up, I want to talk about some ongoing projects that are nominated and constructed. So the first thing that you see on our agenda here is Big Sky North. This is nominated as a capital construction project. It'll likely be a mill fill. This is going to be from the 64 interchange up to the Lava Lake structure to improve the existing asphalt that's there, removing the top, say 2/10 of that asphalt, repaving that, and then covering all that up with a chip seal, probably chip sealing the turnouts that are along the length of the corridor there. Spanish Creek Gallatin Canyon, that's the next project on our list here. This is a bridge replacement over Spanish Creek. We've also added some scope of another project into this project that's farther down on our list, and that's our passing lanes and turnouts project. So this will be a bridge replacement on Spanish Creek and building some passing lanes along the length of the corridor that coincides with the Spanish Creek bridge replacement. So wider corridor, additional lanes, new bridge, wider bridge, probably higher up than it is now, an elevation change, a vertical alignment adjustment to allow for the hydraulic opening and ungulate passage underneath the new bridge. The next one we have on here is West Yellowstone North. This is a chip seal from West Yellowstone headed north 9.3 miles. We have this slotted for 2025. So it'll be let later next year. For the next slide, please. Lava Lake structure. So this is probably the largest price tag project that we have from this optimization plan. Speaking about these projects in particular, the consultant that we've hired is HDR with the project manager standing here behind me. I'm going to pass the microphone to him to talk about these projects that are on the optimization plan, and he'll go through some conceptual layouts that we have from that projects.
Cool, thanks, Brandon. Yeah, I'm Josh Springer, HDR project manager. So these are the top 3 projects that have came from the optimization plan that MDT has nominated. As we run through the list, a couple of them are even starting to be designed right now. So like Brandon said, Lava Lake structure, that's replacing the bridge at Lava Lake, and we're going to do everything we can to improve the turns through there, and also improve and perpetuate access to the Lava Lake trailhead. Passing lanes, we've identified 4 locations throughout the canyon to add a passing lane. Brandon did mention one of those is at Spanish Creek. And as we get going through the slideshow, there's some exhibits to show you where the other ones are. Basically, everywhere we could fit them on straight or tangent sections along the highway. And then along with the passing lanes, we're going to try to improve turnouts, the slow vehicle turnouts and parking along the corridor, just to enhance safety and improve that as much as we can to maybe provide a more reliable corridor for commuters in the mornings and in the afternoons. Next slide, please. The last couple projects that we have, I think the other big one that everyone in the room is interested in is the 191 MT 64 intersection down at where the Conoco is. We are currently working on ICE, that stands for an intersection control evaluation right now, to come up with the optimal solution at that point or at that location. And we are also including a lot of traffic and trip generation up along MT 64 and everything that all the growth that Big Sky has seen, and with the newly constructed Tiger project, to have all that feed into the intersection to design the most optimal solution that we can have there. Then I'll kick it back to Brandon real quick for Spain Ferris Ditch.
So Spain Ferris Ditch, this is just south of the Four Corners interchange. You'll see right at the Four Corners interchange headed north and headed south, it titrates down as far as the existing lanes. That's because of a structure there. It's an old bridge. I'm not sure what year it was built in, but we're replacing that probably with a skewed box culvert. And our intention is to match the lane configuration that you see north of the Four Corners intersection headed south with that replaced structure. So that'll help with capacity and traffic flow substantially as you're headed south from Four Corners.
All right, so Lava Lake structures. In some of our preliminary design with the optimization plan, we've come up with 3 different alternatives. These are, like I said, very preliminary concept level, but the main kind of driving force is we want to build any new alignment offline, so existing traffic can stay on the current highway to minimize as much disruption as we can during construction. The first alignment, as everyone can see, takes a pretty big rock cut to the northeast there, and depending on how everything moves, we would still provide access to the Lava Lake parking and to the Forest House cabins down below in the lower left hand of the graphic there. We're also going to, as you can see, the curbs are a lot less, so hopefully enhance safety as well by not slowing traffic down quite as much as the current curbs are initially designed right now. Next slide, please. Sorry. So the second alternative we looked at kind of goes the other way. We are avoiding all of the rock cut and it's really straightening out the road. One of the compromises with this is we have to add 2 more structures over the Gallatin River which has impacts to a natural resource that a lot of people, including myself, like in Montana. But we're still providing current traffic to stay on the existing highway, why the majority of this option can be built. Alternate 3, please. The third one we looked at, it's kind of a blend between the two, not as aggressive cut with the rock. I think this has 45-mile-an-hour curves there compared to the 35 that we have now. This also gives us an opportunity to add a central or a two-way turn lane in the middle, so it would be a 3-lane section through here. So all the recreational users would not stop traffic. They would have that middle lane to pull in and make a left-hand turn. This is a project actually in very preliminary design right now, so it has moved out of the optimization plan through MDT. They've nominated it, and we are currently working on it. And this is to, like we were talking, enhance mobility and safety by providing more well-defined and well-signed turnouts and pullouts specifically for slow-moving vehicles. We've identified a few locations where we can fit these in. Came up with kind of a detail there, warning drivers that this is coming up. Slow vehicles should pull over, providing the asphalt over to the right-hand side so these large vehicles can pull over and safely move back into directional traffic. So yeah, this project is currently in design along with the next slide, or the intersection. I got ahead of myself. This is one of the concepts that we have came up with for the intersection down at 191 and 64. It's not quite a multi-lane roundabout, it's kind of a hybrid, but we are using 2044 PM peak hour traffic, which has all the growth that we've seen up in Big Sky. We're still projecting that it's about a 3% growth all the way to 24 or to 44, and running that simulation through the roundabout to make sure it'll perform not only with today's volumes, but future volumes as well. And Kevin and Danny and everyone's been great providing us with a lot of detail of growth up in Big Sky so we can take into account everything that's going on up 64 and up the hill. It's going to filter down through this roundabout. Yeah, so we'll take questions from everyone. I know that was pretty fast. And right here.
These projects are at various stages, as I understand it. Is there a timeline for those that we might be seeing sooner than others? Is there a place, a website or something where we can see when we might, as commuters, be experiencing some of this stuff?
Oh, Brandon.
So in this month, last week actually, we put together what's called the TCP, the Tentative Construction Plan. That's taking a 5-year look into the future, looking at the funds you have in each funding category from the core program, and then programming projects within those funding gap years. Within our draft that we have, this hasn't been approved by the commission or anything. The only thing that we've squeezed in 29 is the Spanish Creek Bridge reconstruction. That would be passing lanes along with the Spanish Creek Bridge reconstruction. But we're targeting grants for 2 projects in particular that if we were awarded those grants would move those projects into the program. And that would be the MT 64 191 intersection improvement project and the Lava Lake structure project. So there'll be more information on this, after the TCP is officially approved. That'll be on our website. You'll be able to see the forecasted dates for when these projects will be constructed.
And when might you see the TCP available then on the website?
You'll see it on the website,
No,
yes.
When?
Oh, when? Let's see. I think it'll be late November.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
When you're doing the bridge reworks, are you working in conjunction with the organizations that are focusing on wildlife access so that make sure those also good for the wildlife that eat across the river?
Will you repeat the question for the Zoom?
Sure. So the question was, as we're looking at these bridge reconstruction projects, are we considering wildlife passage and the groups associated with interest in the wildlife passage? And the answer is yes. For example, on the Spanish Creek structure, we've already gone through several revisions to look at ungulate passage underneath the structure. We started off with a 14-foot clearance for the ungulate passage. We looked at a smaller clearance with an additional wildlife passage farther south. Now we're looking at a 9-foot clearance that would have ungulate passage. So yes, on each of these projects, we're considering wildlife passage for sure.
Danny Beerswall, can you give an update on the AST project or the lights project?
Sure. So I would have to check with our traffic section on that. I haven't heard anything recently, but I can check on that and let you know. Sure.
It's like what?
Sure. Yes. Yes. So
Explain what ASTPM is.
oh boy, I'm not the right person to answer that. So the question was an update on the ASTPM project that we have in the queue right now at the traffic signal. And that's actually a different part of our organization that's been managing that. I can check on that, and then I don't know how I can relay it to the whole group, but I can get an update on that project and relay it. But I don't have any information on that right now.
So for the reference, the ASTPM project, that allows MDT to collect real-time information on their 3 traffic signals here in Big Sky so they can study and adjust the timing of those lights. It doesn't automatically adjust the timing. It's not artificial intelligence. That's the next phase, hopefully someday. But it would allow the traffic engineers that sit in Butte and Bozeman to see the real-time data and make adjustments remotely. And so it's a pretty exciting thing they've been working on for a while. Last time we stuck, there was some contract negotiations, but we've been hoping that that would move forward here shortly.
Any other questions?
Yeah, 2 questions about the roundabout. What's gonna happen to the river access that's right by those stoplights? And then the second question is, are you working with Big Sky Arts Council for the center of the roundabout?
Will you repeat the question?
The question was 2 questions. One of them at the intersection of 64 and 191 is about the river access. And the second question was if we're going to work with Big Sky Art Council to put something in the center of the roundabout. So the first question, our limits, we're not going to go closer to the river than the current edge of pavement. So anything would happen to the west, because we don't want to impact the Gallatin at all. And so we want to stay within MDT's right of way. I know a parcel just southeast of there is in conservation, I think with Gallatin Valley Ranch Trust. So everything should be up towards the hill so we wouldn't impact that resource. Second option, I think that's kind of why we're here, through this optimization plan. We've been going through a CSS process, context sensitive solutions. Majority of the people sitting at this table have been invited to the PLT project leadership team meeting. And so I think that's a great opportunity to partner and make this, Kevin and I, we've actually talked about this before, to make that roundabout or whatever the solution is, kind of a gateway key piece as you come into Big Sky. So I think we're open to everything. I'm not put words in Brandon or MDT's mouth, but it's a great opportunity to partner and provide great aesthetics for the area.
Chris, Grace also has some really great ideas for that center roundabout that I know she'd love to talk to you about.
Okay, Sarah.
Hi, Lawrence Bush, Bozeman Daily Chronicle. The Lava Lake project was, my understanding, pegged at 30 to 50 million and the roundabout at 20 million. Their updated cost estimates.
That's probably the ballpark we have now for preliminary design, but I'll let Brandon touch on it.
So for the Lava Lake structure in particular, we don't have a consultant on board yet. I think we're soliciting for consultants later this fall on that project. But one thing we're taking a look at with the optimization plan is getting additional survey data with UAV, getting point clouds, orthomosaics, so we can get some true quantities associated with the earth that would be moved, and then be able to put more concrete dollar amounts to the nominated project for lava lake structure. But I think, 30 to $50 million is what the array of those three selections that you looked at from those conceptual layouts, the three options. So with the additional survey data, we're hoping we can make an informed selection on what the best of those three layouts would be, and then we would have more concrete dollars associated with that preferred alternative.
About the animal.
Hi, I have a question about the animal crossings. We learned about those last night at the community update, and I'm just wondering in what capacity MDT is supporting that federal grant or how you're involved with that. I recognize it wasn't on the optimization plan, but it's also a huge project, specifically the one at the mouth of the canyon.
So there's there's a consultant that's looking at those right now. They just put together a proposal. MDT's provided comments to that proposal. And I think it's in that consultant's hands now, addressing those comments and moving that forward. What we're looking at doing on our side right now is addressing what we can with the nominated projects that yielded from that optimization plan. But as that proposal matures and the consultant comes with their alternatives on where those wildlife crossings would be in the best way to mitigate the wildlife traffic across the corridor, we'll be looking at some nominated projects and then, pursuing grants, I would think, after the projects are nominated.
Is any further discussion on this item, because we are kind of falling behind a little bit? Any further discussion? Questions? Okay.
Hi, I'm Abigail Brewer and I work with the Center for Large Landscape Conservation. I just want to respond to the question about the wildlife crossings at the mouth of the canyon. The Montana Department of Transportation submitted an application to the Federal Wildlife Crossings Pilot Program on September 4th for a series of 3 crossings. This would be a wildlife overpass at about mile marker 71.6. An underpass, there's actually an existing stock bridge or stock underpass right now that could be enlarged to be an underpass with a 3-sided box culvert, as I understand it, with an open bottom, and a bridge retrofit right at the bridge over the Gallatin River. So that would be a secure path for ungulates under what's right now a very tall bridge with steep riprap going down at the edges that makes it hard for the ungulates to use it right now. So that is an application that was submitted with full funding with help from a number of entities in this room to the Federal Wildlife Crossings Pilot Program. It's a $26 million project. The request from the Federal Highway Administration is $22 million. And there was about $3.5 million of non-federal pledges that are required for that. And the Montana Department of Transportation expects to hear back in January to know if that project will be able to go through.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. Hearing none on that, we'll move on to the CIP project discussion. First item is updated CIP timeline and criteria. BSRAD action. Bruce Whaley.
I like it. Certainly not the first time that's been pronunciation. Thank you all for being here. This is an action item for the BSRAD board. A little background for the public. And before I jump into that, I just want to say a huge thanks. Raise of hands. Who was able to make it to the State of Community last night at Longpack? Wow, a lot of you folks were able to make it. For those of you that weren't, the full recording will be available online. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank the Party Planning Committee for Community Week, Jenny Musket and Liz McFadden. Both BSRAD and Chamber in partnership worked to support this full week of activities. And today, following the Joint County Commission meeting, there's a restorative yoga over at base. We've got a ribbon cutting with the Tiger Grant over at the Little Coyote Tunnel. There's a workout Zumba at base at 4 o'clock Arts Council Kids Art Class at base from 4 to 5, and then trivia at Waypoint tonight. And just a huge thanks to everyone who has made this week happen. A little bit of background about the capital improvement plan. The BSRAD board has been working diligently over the past year since it was adopted capital improvement plan at the commission meeting last fall. We worked with Tischler Weiss to do an environmental scan within the community to seek out what infrastructure deficiencies exist throughout Big Sky. And as we've gone through this process, we took kind of a narrow lens of what's happening in the next year. Kristen and I work diligently with a variety of partners who have been very helpful in answering questions related to projects that are infrastructure related and of public benefit. And we were able to whittle that list down quite a bit and then expanded our exploration to a 3-year horizon. So that has been the process we've been operating in since about June of this year. And as we've begun to work through a multi-phase questionnaire through these projects that are coming to light, we're beginning to try to understand what impact could BSRAD have on moving forward these infrastructure deficiencies through investment. And how we do that is really been outlined through a vetting timeline. And at the capital improvement plan subcommittee has been working towards establishing a timeline that will work, beginning to back up from May of next year when we're looking at going potentially to the ballot to address some of these infrastructure projects through a vote for a potential bond. If you're curious what a bond is, take a look at the Big Skyway article that we put out in the last Explore Big Sky. It understands financing and budgets and helps to explain what different fiscal tools leverage for being able to fund infrastructure projects within our community. Now, some of the projects that are in the CIP are certainly items that the community would like to be aware of, but they're not necessarily projects that are going to be invested from the resort tax or BSRAD dollars. A really good example of that are the 4 projects that were just denoted through the Montana Department of Transportation. We want to make sure the community is aware of the activity that is happening around those projects, but they're really not something that resort tax is going to be necessarily making an investment in as we move into a vote next year. What we have in front of the board today is an updated vetting timeline. Unfortunately, we probably need to wedge another board meeting in before the end of the year. So that's one piece of this timeline that we need approval from the board on, and that's what the action is for today. Significant activity that transitioned really is a couple of subcommittee meetings and some one-on-ones with bond counsel and engagement with the direct engagement with the project sponsors as they're beginning to move these forward. And the subcommittee would in turn be bringing some recommendations back to this board for approval if the subcommittee determines that those are the recommendations based on the financing stack. And at the end of the CIP presentation, Mace Mangold is going to give an update on one of the projects that are in the capital improvement plan, the Gallatin Canyon Water and Sewer District. And so the request of the board today is to take action on the updated timeline that is in front of you. And then in addition to that, the eligibility criteria that has been set forth, Jenny, if you can bounce to the next slide, was also in the packet that was sent out to the board. And so probably the biggest and most important thing to denote on this is as the CIP subcommittee has been working to determine what's the best fit for potential bonding, which think of it like a mortgage that you would take out on your house where you borrow against collections or revenues that are being generated, and then that in turn goes down to pay the debt service. This is a pivot for the resort tax. We've traditionally been a grant-making organization, very similarly to a foundation on how we would grant our dollars on an annualized basis. And as we begin to look at long-term capital investment, this is a little bit of a different structure than we've had in the past, because as you go to borrow against these large-scale investments, there is interest that's involved. There's the term of the loan, the bond that's involved. And so one of the main recommendations from the group is anything that is below $1 million, and correct me if I'm wrong, subcommittee here, but the idea was the standard grant process is a better fit for those types of projects. Whereas, if we're looking at borrowing dollars, anything that would be above $1 million would be what should be considered for the board. So that's an eligibility criteria that's outlined here. Probably that's the main one to denote, but anything from the subcommittee to add to the process that we've been working through.
I think Danny, as usual, did a great job covering it.
I think just on the term of the bond, one important thing to get out to the community is that the resort area district is set to expire in 2032, which is 8 years from now. And if we're taking on large projects, we can only legally bond up until the end of that term. So what's going to be really important for community conversations moving forward is the conversation around extending the life of the resort area district. It's just a basic first that needs to happen before we start really taking these projects seriously.
Great flavor. Any other questions? Looking for a motion from the board.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we follow the updated CIP timeline and criteria put forth by the subcommittee.
I'll second.
Moved by Grace, seconded by Sarah. We'll entertain any public comment on this.
I have a quick question. Well, we maybe wait for public comment. I was curious, a little more flavor on the boards, the subcommittees idea with $1 million. I feel like we have a lot of projects that end up in like the 800-ish range, and now are they just going to become $1 million because $1 million is what it takes to get a bond? So I was thinking maybe a 2 million number, but would be curious to kind of hear what you guys were thinking.
That's a great question. Sure, it certainly could happen, but we were just, to Danny's point, we thought anything that's under $1 million or under can be handled in our annual allocations as we have in the past. So that's why we chose $1 million. Yeah, we'll see where this shakes out.
I think we assume with our applicants that everyone is going to be bidding and giving us the most competitive pricing possible.
So just as a more matter of order, we'll do public comment, we'll continue board's discussion. I definitely want to continue to have that. So is there any public comment on this specific agenda item? Okay, hearing and seeing none, any board discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I too would have voted aye. Thank you.
Jenny, we can move on to the slide.
Sorry, mouse is getting a little crazy.
So we're going to provide a summary of projects that are currently submitted to the resort area district as a result of the capital improvement plan. And as some of these projects on their own volition just aren't ready to move forward with this process, we still will keep them in the CIP. Our objective is to keep this thing live and updated on an annual basis. So what we have here is a summary of all the projects to date that have come to light through this environmental scan. I don't need to necessarily read all of them to you. I think they've been in the news quite a bit, but this is a very quick summary of all the projects that are out there. I did want to say a thank you to both commissions. You've both been on site and actively engaged in your respective counties to take a look at what's actively happening, boots on the ground. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Mace to kind of dive us into the specifics of one of the projects that have been actively working on for a couple of years now. So I'll turn it over to Mace to give you some feedback.
Thanks, Danny. When you start clicking or do I just look at
Give me a second, yeah.
So Mason Angle WGM Group, a lot of you have heard me present at one time or another, especially the commissioners. But I do want to, for the benefit of the entire room, give some recap on the project in general. And really the focus of today's discussion, I'm kind of putting that funding focus into the mix rather than the good for the river, the good for the public health, that whole story. I'm gonna not miss that point, but really I want to keep in that capital improvement mentality. So next slide, Jenny. So overview, you got a picture on the right. This is the Gallatin Canyon area. Basically evaluate from the stoplight down to the school. The further the better, the broader the reach, the better, but that is our focus area. I'll give a kind of a brief history, about a 4-year active project history, but it's really decades in the making. Fundamentally, it started as a river water protection project, but as we dove into the impacts of septics, it's a drinking water protection project as well. The stakeholders for this project are broad, diverse. It has a range of community benefits. So I want to hit on that. And then again, funding is our key push right now, working with BSRAD on financial stack. BSRAD, their revenue stream with resort tax, 1%, and upcoming tools to get these big projects over the hump. So that's the outline I'm going to cover today. Overview, the project really got its roots, I'd say 2010, 2015, the Gallatin River Task Force identified septic systems as a #1 loader to the Gallatin River. With that legwork, they requested funding from BSRAD to do this feasibility study that you see on the right, completed in 2020. That put in motion the 1% for infrastructure ask, noting that this was a big project. It wasn't going to be funded without that extra support. So within a year of that study, the Gallatin Canyon County Water and Sewer District was formed. It is a public entity facilitated through a county approval back in 2020, and we have been marching forward at a pretty good clip ever since. Yes, it's been 4 years, but these are not small projects. We've been knocking out preliminary engineering reports, again, seeking funding from the state. Within that process, $2 million in the ARPA round, $750K that was really facilitated as ARPA money through Gallatin County, and some extra ancillary funding in the meantime. So 2022 to 2023 is when we dove into what is the low-hanging fruit from a nutrient standpoint, and then also that human health element. So where should the sewer start and stop in terms of collection of septics? So that was a push there. And then where we are really today, the sewer design and permitting is about a 30% level, working with DEQ on the discharge permitting. Groundwater discharge is our solution. If you hear pipe to the river, that's not on the radar. Where groundwater discharge is that primary mechanism for Gallatin Canyon area disposal. We're working for a solution that really works with the entire community, and sending that treated effluent or sending the collected sewer up to the Big Sky treatment plant, high quality treatment, and let that be a central management point to either go groundwater discharge to the canyon, or even the great elegant solution of snow making up the hill. And that just works excellent. So that's our macro solution. That type of scale solution is not cheap. So again, we're in this funding realm of resort tax is key. In the end, the ratepayers carry a large burden. These formerly free sewers to some degree with septic systems, we'd be transitioning to more of that standard central sewer, monthly sewer bill, and so forth. And again, new development pays some of that burden with connection fees. And we're looking to expand that funding toolbox to get this over the hump, really to keep that end user monthly sewer bill down. So that's the project timeline. Looking backwards, looking forward, I'm kind of pitching a 2027 construction start with a lot of things that need to happen between now and then, but to give you that timeline in your heads of what we're targeting. So next slide, Jenny. Off to the right, this was modeling back in 2020 in terms of septic systems in the valley. Really, all those septic systems are septic tanks that collect wastewater, and they go to drain fields that go to the underlying aquifer. That septic load ends up in the Gallatin River. So this map basically shows what we would consider septic plumes migrating to the east towards the Gallatin, and generally there's a south to north gradient. So all those sewer systems kind of collect and flow by Whitewater In corridor, everything that's kind of that Highway 191 to the river. There's a commercial corridor. Those plumes just kind of center there and end up in the Gallatin River. So really, that's where that drinking water source protection comes in. All that developments on individual wells, the same aquifer that those drainage fields are in. So drinking water source protection, reduce the nutrient load to the Gallatin River. It's been deemed impaired for algae blooms. Nitrogen is a leading cause there. The leading source, in my opinion, is the septic system. So putting a solution in motion to mitigate those impacts to the river, and then really just have long-term solution to wastewater for the community. Septic systems are really a low cost, no comprehensive plan to wastewater management. That is the development model that's kind of been in place for that corridor. Changing that model to central sewer, which increases the ability for density with reduced impact to the Gallatin River. So good macro long-term management of the wastewater mitigates these ranges of river impacts and human health risks. So project components, I do have an updated map on the back. This map on the right really shows the white line is what we're conceptualizing as feasible collection of, we can reach those homes, those communities, those businesses relatively cost effectively. The phasing of the project is really the variable we're trying to answer. And that's going to be funding driven and participation, willing landowners willing to commit. As of now, the Canyon District is up to 34 parcels. It originally started as 4 parcels 4 years ago. So to get that additional support or additional landowner buy-in has been excellent. That's going to up our odds for more grants and really just increases the feasibility of this project. It's an economy of scale game, and really to solve the problem of nutrients to the river, we need as many landowners as possible. And where a lot of that interest lies is, we call this service area 4, the various development between the highway 191 and the river. Those happen to be where septic systems are in the closest contact to the river. So it's kind of a meat bucket in terms of nutrients we can remove. So that's a huge benefit. Top bullet there, partnership has really been the key to get this project rolling. River Interest, Gallatin River Task Force, their initiative, housing interests, the community need for that missing middle housing, specifically the quarry PUD has been kind of the backbone of where we could facilitate some of this density. And then just the community objectives in general, better wastewater management, managed growth, opportunities for redevelopment in that corridor, which in turn generates resort tax, property tax, and it's an economic development engine. Ultimately, the end goal is to be a Gallatin Canyon, Big Sky Water and Sewer District collaboration on this project. Sewer collection from the school to the north to a lift station that pumps uphill to the brand new Big Sky MBR treatment plant, high quality treatment with the goal of groundwater discharge option to go back down the valley with effluent that's basically 10x better removal of nitrogen. So high quality effluent coming down. One of the main hurdles that is kind of increasing our focus on funding, I'll say, is Highway 64 corridor is a challenging corridor to navigate those dual pipelines up. We ended up adding a lift station. It's represented by that red dot mid-span between the intersection and the Big Sky Wharf. These are all adding costs that are on the scale about $10 million higher than what we had originally anticipated. So looking for those avenues to fund those, identify that funding to where the end user rate is sustainable. We can get users online. So that's a key component, and I never want to miss that point. We're looking to use this wastewater as reuse water. Groundwater recharge, that's great for the aquifer, and reuse, irrigation reuse. Let's not pump clean water from the aquifer just to spray lawns. Let's optimize it. Next slide. So here's where the dollars come in. Purposes of this, it's a complex puzzle. I went with really big round numbers. Starting with BSRAD as the key component at the top. 1% for infrastructure was voted on 4 years ago. We are likely going to put more funding on the table or an ask to the community to increase that budget, either through that mechanism or the other capital improvement financing mechanism. So BSRAD is a key component. Top line, that $12 million was originally earmarked. Looking to get to a $20 million number to really provide this project the base backbone to work with other funding entities. User rates and connection fees. New development, private development, existing users, it carries a large portion of this burden. Central sewer is a big lift to go from septic systems to 5-10 miles of pipeline and everything that goes with it, high quality treatment. It is a notable cost. That cost does translate down to the user. Our goal is, again, to land as much non-community money, state money, federal money to keep those that economic burden on the end user down. So that second line, really nice big round number of 20 million. That's all dependent on how far do we go down the valley. The bigger the project, the bigger the benefit, but it's really a balance of what can the community afford. Since we have the county commissioners here, we created a nice line item for you. The county has earmarked almost $1 million or get granted 1 million. Conceptually, I put a nice round number of 10 million. There is a range of tools out there, a range of grants to chase, whether it's with county support, community support, to work with the Gallatin County to do that. There's also that economic development engine of this project is really on the backbone of new development capital coming to the table. And what are those public-private partnership mechanisms that the county, the Canyon Utility District or Big Sky BSRAD can work with Gallatin County to help fund this project. So getting creative on what that financial stack would be, whether it's targeted economic development district and property tax and tax increment finance, or the whole range of general obligation bonds and special assessments, putting every tool on the table. Then we will continue to chase state and federal funding. The project merits are wide reaching, which opens up a wide range of grants we can be looking at. We have landed all the, I'll say, the standard low hanging fruit, MSEP, a lot of acronyms, RGL, all those standard Montana funding mechanisms. Now we're looking at the non-standard, the bigger raise grants, the build grants, and any tool we can. So the round number I'm throwing out there is $55 million. I'm glad MDT threw out a big $50 million number, so it makes me feel like I'm not crazy. But again, we can engineer or we can reduce that number, but I don't want to pitch a project that is lesser than what Canyon District, myself, Big Sky community sees as the right project. We could do a smaller project, we could do lesser solutions, and it could be a $30 million number. The $55 million number is this post solution that we are working with Big Sky Water and Sewer District and BSRAD to really keep on the tracks. It's not cheap to pump uphill, get to that high quality treatment at the Big Sky Wharf, push them into a future upgrade. It's a complex puzzle, but it's the right solution that we're continuing to move forward. I'm not even sure if I have another slide. So I'm going to end with that financial stack slide. Again, that's a conceptual financing stack, but we do want to start that dialogue at the county level of partnering on grant applications, partnering on this TED-TIP concept. There's a lot of autonomy up here. That's a tool we plan to use.
Mace, I was curious, I think I saw the map right, I didn't remember my glasses this morning, but, does this only go to the school? It doesn't go like to River House and that next little subdivision, it's not little, but next kind of grouping of subdivisions just down the canyon?
We are looking to go just a little further. The school is kind of that no-brainer. We want to get there. The River Grill is kind of that next, let's maybe look for that opportunity.
Yeah, 'cause that one's sitting right at the river, and then that next development is right on the river. I assume that they also have.
You see that potential. It becomes a bang for your buck when we start talking Corral Bar and further. We're
Yeah.
taking them off our mind, but River Grill and that other development, that's within reach.
Mace, what's your idea on what the next steps are?
So the Canyon District and the Big Sky Water and Sewer District are working to go from 30% design to 60% design, really refine those numbers. Whether it's a value engineering or maybe we find a pitfall that jumps the number more. So advancing that design, getting a contractor lined up. So when stars do align, that we get that funding in place, all these hurdles in place, discharge group in place, we are ready to roll. So it's from an implementation standpoint, that is our path. I'll say that's a 1 year, pretty solid push. But ultimately, this project requires notable funding to even consider breaking ground. So it's a it's a near-term focus on just the financial package and working with the state revolving fund as a low-cost loan and various tools that the state gives us to get these heavy lifts going. So funding and continue to advance design, continue that outreach effort with landowners. Just the bigger the reach, the better the project.
Any comment?
Any other questions?
Jim Delzer, is there more that the community ourselves can do to help move that funding request forward?
Yes, I would say the biggest near-term step might be that new 1% asked to the community. So 1% for infrastructure. We anticipate that coming to the community. As far as the expansion of federal funding, state funding, the Canyon District will be reaching out for letters of support as we look to create as competitive of a grant package as we can. So I will look for mechanisms to make sure we're communicating that desire for input as much as possible. And Gallatin Canyon website is our main tool to kind of facilitate the community, GallatinCanyonWSB.com. But yes, community support is a key criteria for some of these grant packages.
Let's talk after.
Yeah, sounds good.
Anybody else? Oh, somebody clear in the back.
Yes, when you talked about the developer, like the public-private partnership, the developer contribution, is that a financial contribution? And if so, where does that fit in that table that you showed, the total 59 million?
Will you repeat the question?
So the question is not developer capital commitment and kind of that financial impact there. How does that actually come into play? There's a few tools. Connection fees. If you live and work in the Big Sky Water and Sewer District, they have an SFE-based connection fee that you pay when you connect. Similarly, new development would be at the table to pay some front-end costs to this project. And then there's the user fees that are really private dollars or individual citizens' dollars paying back loans to fund this project. So that it's a front-end potential on the private development in terms of connection fees and commitments. And then that long-term paying down fundamentally publicly backed commitments through private user rates. The public-private partnership mechanism is with that private capital commitment, how do you leverage those private dollars to be backing for broader public dollars? And to some degree, that aligns with what BSRAD is looking at in terms of that tax revenue as a reliable base and leverage that for loans. So it gets messy, or it gets in the weeds to really put together what that truly looks like. But that private commitment and that match dollar and that ability to leverage is a notable tool. Hopefully that didn't just dilute, distract from your answers.
Any other comment?
Mace, I'd be curious, do you anticipate the quarry project starting construction before they're ready to hook up into the system? I know I would say, for myself, somewhat regretfully, approved that development on septic net approvals with the promise that they would eventually hook up to the Canyon Water and Sewer District when it's ready to accept their effluent. But what's the current status of how you think that project will be phased with this infrastructure?
Yes, I do anticipate the quarry needing to develop faster than we're going to be ready. They're carrying capital. They need that project to move forward in a phased fashion. We are tracking with how they're approaching it. The septic nets are modular. They are, say, dragging their feet on how many they need to install to minimize that capital cost so that they can contribute more capital to the central sewer. So they're moving forward in a phased fashion. And as a utility district, we're looking for avenues of maybe those septic nets can be repurposed as part of more of a nutrient banking strategy that say that septic net could shift down to the corral bar, or wherever some pockets of low hanging fruit might exist. Maybe it's a financial mechanism where that money isn't just sunk cost, but we do want to be out in front of development because that's the key to making this pencil a bit.
Just one last question for that. So realizing it's ahead of the funding's ahead of this question. With the potential of construction in the intersection 64, 191, and what the sewer district would need to do to put in piping and all that kind of stuff. Coordination of schedule for that. If you're talking 27, and it sounds like that might be about the timing possibly for the intersection.
Will you repeat it, please?
Yeah, question is on can the intersection timeline versus the canyon sewer timeline. That's my excuse for being a year late. Danny threw that kink in the mix. No, just kidding. It'd be awesome if both those projects can go in 2027. Maybe we can find some win-wins on cost savings. We don't want to get too joined at the hip to where we just delay progress on specific components, but we are keeping that dialogue going. In fact, we shared our survey from the canyon with HDR to advance their design. So we're looking for opportunities to sync up to keep that.
Well, the idea is trying to get the pipe in the ground before we pave it.
Yes.
That they're all back up.
I think we're ahead of the game there, and we will at a minimum sleeve stuff to where we're not ripping that new roundabout.
Perfect.
I can take that part.
Thank you.
Yes.
Lawrence Bush, both Daily Chronicle. The water has been a big fixation of litigation in Big Sky. Is the sewer district preparing, practically doing things for potential delays in litigation?
Yes.
That incorporated in that budget that you.
Whether it's incorporated in the budget or not, I would say maybe that's built in the contingency. We anticipate that there is a risk of litigation. I would say we're more tracking it in terms of potential project holdup. But honestly, putting a solution in the mix that's a net improvement to the river is our key litigation risk control measure. Net nutrient reduction is our goal. We will accomplish it. There's a lot of tools to make this project reduce impacts that are already documented of algae blooms. That's really the basis of those lawsuits is water quality and the beneficial use of the river. This project will reduce that risk. I can't say that litigation will be eliminated because the complexity of ecosystems and water quality and impairments we'll just make as clear cut of a case that this project is a net benefit to the river as possible.
Anybody else?
Just one last comment. I mean, I think everybody in this room realizes what an important project this is for the community of Big Sky. It truly is a win-win for the Gallatin River. It's a win-win for all water resources in the Gallatin drainage. It's a win for workforce housing because with density comes affordability. And we, as a resort tax board, we're going to continue to lean into this and we'll likely try to set up some side meetings with our partners in Gallatin County because this is such an important issue for our community. So more to come on this topic, a lot more to come on.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Hearing no more comment here, we'll go on to Gallatin County plume discussion. Boyer.
Great, thank you so much. My name is Jennifer Boyer, one of your Gallatin County Commissioners, and I get to provide an update on our future land use map project, which we just finished our second round of community outreach, and many of you may have attended a forum here or online or engaged on our website, which is envisiongallatin.com, where you can get all the information. So this project has been going on for about a year, and what this effort is doing is it's taking our growth policy and it is putting it geographically on a map. And so all of the work and community outreach that went into our growth policy and all of the community outreach and focus groups, community meetings, special stakeholder meetings that have happened over the past year went to inform the development of this map. So we took the values and the concerns that we heard and we put those into a model that then looked at not a property not a property line, but a pixel. And this model forecasted the intensity of development that would be appropriate on Gallatin County land use, on the land use map. So this doesn't deal with Bozeman or Belgrade or any municipal planning areas. So it's really focused on where the county has jurisdiction over future land use decisions. And so we looked at keeping our footprint of development near existing infrastructure, services, and community cores. We looked at reducing risk from wildfire, from floods, and other areas that carry a higher level of potential harm to our residents or property. We looked at values such as wildlife connectivity, agricultural production, and this future land use map sort of just doesn't get into specifics about zoning. What it does is it looks at where is future development best served across our geography. And so when you look online, you'll see sort of gradations of, ripe for future development, intense development, denser development around our community cores, areas of moderate development that may actually be on hold until it is serviced by future community infrastructure, namely water and sewer. So for example, in our triangle area between Bozeman, Four Corners, and Belgrade, there's a lot of land area that is currently coded as moderate development. And folks were asking, well, it seems like we've had some pretty active development patterns in this area. And what the future land use map is doing is it's saying it could be ripe for additional development at denser levels when and if the water and sewer comes on board. And that can be done in two ways. So the first way is that a community system or Four Corners Water and Sewer or Ray Water and Sewer districts extend service. Or it could be by creating a community system for the development. So that enables, when future extension of our utilities happens, an easier hookup. So much of Gallatin County was deemed as not ripe for development. So those agricultural, rural areas, far from community cores. It definitely includes future development and growth around like yourself. So like Amsterdam, Churchill, so not unincorporated communities, Gallatin Gateway. So I encourage folks to take a look at the map if you haven't had an opportunity to do that. And our next step is that the final comments are being incorporated into this. It'll go next to the Gallatin County Planning Board. That'll be a public forum. If you go to envisiongallatin.com, you can sign up and be sure that you're noticed for all the future meetings. The planning board will take it under consideration and make a recommendation to the Gallatin County Commission. We will then have a notice of intent to adopt and then a adoption. And the timeline is to complete that by the end of this calendar year. So we're right on time. It's been a great project. We've had a lot of community input and look forward to getting it completed.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the audience? Any questions? Okay. Questions, we'll move on to next agenda item, Madison County Growth Policy discussion. Commissioner Phil Todd.
Thank you. I'll read some notes because obviously Ron was supposed to do this one, but our planning staff has completed 5 community forums in different communities within Madison County, including Sheridan, Pony, Dennis, Cameron, and Big Sky. The community survey has received over 400 responses. Our survey closes in mid-October. We anticipate a draft plan in November
The plan will include a snapshot of the current status of the county's demographics, economy, natural resources, and land use. The plan will also include goals, objectives, and action plan for each sub-community within the county, as the needs and priorities vary depending on locality. Once adopted, this plan will serve as the foundation for developing and implementing other land use regulations, in addition to providing support for grant funding opportunities. The grant plan will be reviewed through the public hearing process via the Madison County Planning Board and via the Commission. And we're anticipating adoption of this new growth policy in March 2025. That's about it. Does anyone have any questions? Short, sweet. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. With that one, we'll go on to next agenda item, which is Local Government Study Commission. Myself. What do you think, Scott?
But now we expect that most people have probably heard of this. We're already partway through some of the steps that were required every decade for the local government study. But just to recap, following a decennial census, every local government, 72 Constitution in state law, shall put on the ballot in June the question of whether any municipality, city, town, or county, whether their citizens would like to study the local government. So we put that question on the ballot for Gallup County. What we were left to decide, or what were left up to us to put into that question, were the number of seats for the to be decided commission and how much money we expected to budget for that study commission. So we have decided for Gallup County's part to 7 seats on the ballot in November, had you passed it in June, and a half of a mil for us, which is about $350,000 to $400,000 at the time we made that decision. So in our county, City of Bozeman, Town of West Yellowstone, and Gallup County, those communities all passed that question and would like to study their government. So now we're on to the next step, which for the last several months, citizens have been signing up to run for those positions to sit on the Government Study Commission. We have Gallup County, for example, has 22 people that wish to be on that ballot. So you'll see on the ballot 22 Gallup County citizens wishing to be appointed to the Government Study Commission. You'll choose the top 7 of those. They'll be seated after we canvass that election. And after that, they will be set to their own devices. They describe their own involvement, the rate of how often they meet, what their pace of their development is going to be. They'll do we expect a period of kind of self-education. The board will be granted access to all the resources the county can give them. All of our staff and consultants they are to put here, the process for consultants to take them through this process. They'll study our form of government. And if they choose, come up with recommendations for what they would change about your local government. If they come up with recommendations that they would like to put forth to the voters, then in 2026, 6th year following the census, they would put those recommendations on the ballot for you. That has nothing to do with your local government approving any of those changes, having any chance to modify any of those changes, or in any way affect that. It's another shall in state law. Shall put those recommendations supported by the study commission onto the ballot for you to decide whether you'd like to change them. So what you'll see in November is an enormous list of people wishing to be on that government study commission. A couple of nights ago, we had a forum here in Big Sky where several of those study commission candidates made themselves available to the public and talk a little bit about their ideas. It's a pretty good discussion. That about covers what is going on for Gallup County. That probably summarizes most of what's going on for Madison County as well.
Yeah, pretty close. Madison County has 11 people apply for the local government review. And as Scott said, it will be elected in the November election, and then the study commission. Some of the state MSU local government stuff they'll have 18 months to spend leading discussions among local citizens, so they'll have hearings and take in public comment. And then all approach changes will need to be presented to voters no later than November 26th. Elections. Just a couple other notes there. The ones that received, of course, as we would all know, that candidates who receive the highest votes will be there, be the study commission. They will also take some training from MSU Local Government Services, so they know the proper way to do that. And then they study and meet at least once a month, probably more often than that to get started. And when they finally get to the point where they come to us with that recommendation, and it is a recommendation that will go before the voters. One interesting thing is it would cost us quite as much as it does Gallatin County, but it is an expense. So if voters do approve a change in the government, then you have to follow that change in government for 3 years. And if you find out during that 3 years that it doesn't work, then it goes back before the voters for all that cost. Then you have to do it again. So it's an important process, probably a good process that we have it. I think the current Madison County Commission gets things done fairly well. I know some folks have wanted more members on the commission, but then again, I can look at, I think 3 of our 4 municipalities in Madison County have all voted for it too, and they all have 4 members plus a mayor. So it's a good process, and I think it'll be very interesting. So does anybody have any questions?
How many people are on here?
3. Yeah, 3. Thank you for that. I forgot. Yeah, so it's interesting, and well, in my own mind, I would like to see Madison County possibly hold a candidate forum for the study commission members, just so they can introduce themselves and people can kind of get a feel for why they're doing it. Like nobody's running because they have a admin deadline. Anyways,
So you'll have 11 people on the ballot for 3 seats.
yes. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay, we'll move on then.
I just had a question, if you could provide a couple of examples of the type of recommendations that might come out of a study like this?
Will you repeat it?
This is Commissioner Brown. I was gonna jump in and make a comment about that anyway, because I do think it's helpful, so I'm grabbing the mic. The question is, give us a couple examples of the types of recommendations that might be considered by these study commissions. So what I was planning to add was that, as Commissioner McFarland said, the forms of county government and municipal government that we have today were created and contemplated at a high level in the 1973 Montana Constitution. So that was kind of day zero. And in Gallatin County, we are currently operating under the general powers form of county government, which is essentially the boilerplate default. If you just opt into what the general county government structure is. If we want to make adjustments to that, there's some other examples out there are Butte-Silverboe County has a consolidated city-county government, which is probably not on the table here. It would be a huge reform, but it's an interesting model to look at where they don't have a Butte city government. They have a consolidated Butte-Silverboe County municipal government. It's the same in Anaconda-Deer Lodge County. Some examples there are in Anaconda-Deer Lodge County, they have a police commissioner who's elected, who both is in charge of the municipal police departments as well as the county sheriff's departments. It combines law enforcement. In Butte-Silverboe, I believe there are 10 commissioners and an 11th county executive, who's essentially the mayor, elected mayor of Butte-Silverboe County. Under the general powers form of government, we elect county treasurers. We have 3 commissioners who are elected at large. We have an elected clerk and recorder, elected sheriff, an elected county attorney, an elected county auditor. Those are all positions that you could professionalize or change if the study commission sees other options out there that they'd like to recommend. And generally, we could, like the city of Bozeman, for example, does not operate on a general powers form of government. They created their own charter, which is essentially a constitution for the city of Bozeman that allows them to design their system really from scratch rather than just the default that's contemplated under Montana statute. So just a flavor of some things that could be under consideration. I think number of commissioners is a common one. How they're elected, whether they represent districts, wards, or are at large. And then of our countywide elected officials, we still want to select those positions from an election basis or professionalize them or change those positions and their duties in any way. And then if we want to consider a charter.
I believe there's also a question of whether or not positions are being considered on a nonpartisan basis or a partisan basis. Madison County is a nonpartisan county, so we don't have Democratic or Republican nominees in that primary process. It's all open, which probably get in trouble, but in my opinion, it's much better. Saves a lot of grief.
Just an observation is there may be an opportunity for districts for Big Sky to get a representation on both Madison and Gallatin counties. Stay tuned.
Thanks for that. Anybody else? Anything? Okay. Move on to the next agenda item, which is incorporation study.
Which I would like to clarify, is actually a governance study, local governance study. And a lot of you met with us over the last few weeks related to this. So Big Sky's local governance study. Thank you, WGM.
Good morning. First, I want to thank. Good morning. And first off is thank you for giving us time on the agenda because we have some nomenclature, to use Tally's word last night, that we want to make sure everybody's on the same page. And thank you, Board Woman Flecta, for getting that off our chest because we were back there thinking the same thing. We've had many people in the community tell us, let's try to keep the incorporation piece out of it because this is a governance study. Anyway, back to thank yous. We appreciate being here on the agenda. And my name is Meg O'Leary, and I am the stakeholder and community outreach person for this study. And I'm going to have Caitlin introduce herself before we get on with our comments.
Hi there, I'm Caitlin from WGM Group, and I am here to kind of coordinate the team. It's WGM, Meg with M2 O'Leary Group, and then Echo Northwest, who they are doing the financial analysis for the project. So kind of just coordinating between everyone and doing the community engagement, which has been really enlightening.
Thank you, Caitlin. And like she said, WGM Group in partnership with M2O Group and Echo Northwest is conducting a study to explore governance options for the Big Sky community. This does include the potential of the possibility, it does include potentially thinking about incorporating as a municipal government. The study will take, we think, we'd like to be done by June of 2025, but we're going to give ourselves a little bit of grace. It could be a 10 to 12 month project that will include things like she said, data gathering, trend analysis, and very, very importantly, speaking with each and every one of you as you are in your organizations and as you are a community member. The study is fact-based. This is going to give you, the people that will
wherever this ends up, you'll have the information so you can make your own decisions on this thing. What this study is not, and this is a slide out of the flume. Jennifer's team's doing an awesome job with the flume, and they have one slide that says what this study is and what it is not. This is not a study that's going to spend the next 10 to 12 months coming up with recommendations for you. This is facts for you to make your own decisions. Jennifer, yeah. Okay, we were here September 23, 24, and 25 in this room. Half of you in the room, you met with us and you got to lay eyes on the Echo Northwest team. They are an economic development agency that work across the Pacific Northwest and have done some work in the community and specifically for the chamber. So they know a little bit about this from a trend in data gathering. They showed up here in person and you all blew them away, and the weather was pretty fantastic for them also, and they can't wait to come again. So it was fun to show the place off to these girls, and it's also really fun to watch them because they're very smart and they're very good at what they do. 19 meetings, and then we had a couple follow-ups the following week. All that information that was gathered in those interviews is being analyzed right now. We also had the public meeting in here the evening of the 24th, and that was really interesting. Thank you for coming. And the questionnaire turned out to be really kind of a cool tool that we'll continue to use, and Caitlin's going to talk a little bit about that. And we're also here all week. We started off Monday morning, loud and proud at 8 a.m. and we're here all the way through. We've got a table in the back in this room right now that shows, kicking off a little taste of the map. So come look at you. Many of you know what the boundaries are for our current districts. We've got a little taste for you to come back and look and see what something might look like. And we even included some density information. With that, I'm going to let you take over because Caitlin's going to talk a little bit about the website and some of the engagement from the questionnaire.
Thank you. So as we've mentioned, and we will continue to mention, there is a project website. The name is too long. I'm not going to try to say it, but we have the website on the flyer and also QR codes floating around. But first of all, what we heard from the questionnaire, which honestly, I'm sure, not a huge surprise. There are concerns of increased taxes, added bureaucracy. That's one thing I got out of individual meetings was how dynamic and how quick things can change here. And I know that is a benefit. Also, sometimes a slippery slope. The impact it would have on existing nonprofits, and then sentiment for more local and self-governance, which is kind of what I mentioned. But there's also a sentiment for more representation, more perspectives, greater voices, as well as a united voice, one that kind of the whole community can get behind and support. Then skepticism and doubt about, meaningful change. What does this mean? Do we need it? What is the point of this? Pretty much, which, very, very valid. Next slide, I think. All right. So, and these are things kind of that we're working through right now. Cross-county incorporation, again, these are things that we're kind of bouncing around, talking about with people in the community. Density requirements. What are the density requirements for incorporation? I will tell you, 200 people per square mile right now in the Montana Code. What are the downsides? What are the pros and cons? That's what we will be putting in the report. Again, we aren't making recommendations. We are basically putting the pros and cons as they relate specifically to this community. And then how would alternative governance models function? So what exactly are those functions, or what exactly are those governance models? Which I kind of did outline in the flyer that's back there. For lack of a better term, I thought of like Googleable words. So things that you can look up, things that you can kind of read about in Montana Code. And then also things to think about while you're looking into some of these different forms of government, including density or population density. Sorry, I need to, the voting requirements, tax implications, and then just the current dynamics and the changing dynamics of Big Sky. And then again, specific benefits and restrictions, what incorporation introduced. I know that one thing that we've heard a few times is liquor licenses. And so things like that, how would that affect liquor licenses in the future? We're done with that slide.
We've said it a couple times, what's happening right now. Yes, you saw us in the community a week and a half ago. You see us here now. The team at home, they're working on all the analytics from all the data that was gathered. And as most of you know, you have to start with the existing conditions before you can start analyzing what might come about. The other thing that I know this is kind of strange, but and interesting, Commissioner Brown, you mentioned Butte Silverbow. On our team, on the WGM team, Dylan Pipinich is from Butte Silverbow, and he knows all about that consolidation. So we have some really good expertise in Dylan, knowing how that relates to what we might be doing going forward. So he's looking at in addition, he's also kind of a nerd. He's looking at every single page of Montana code. So it'll be interesting to see how deep the report will end up showing you the code. Okay, so fiscal and operational existing condition study is going on right now. And to get on to the next steps, yeah, great, what's happening next? We will continue on with this engagement piece. There will be several opportunities to be in person with the team. There will be electronic ways to engage, and there will also, of course, be the good old survey that's going to come out. You'll note on the calendar or on the slide, community conversations, those dates just got confirmed. They are on the website. I'll tell you right now that it's a series of 3 Tuesdays. And those conversations will be about an hour long, and it's designed to really be conversational, not this kind of, we want to hear from you. And so we're going to actually open up some open-ended questions and see where we go with that. And then we'll put that together in an organized way. Three Tuesdays, starting October 15th at the Water and Sewer Building. And you'll also see this information in all the e-newsletters that our partners will blast out, whether it's BSRAD or the Chamber of Commerce. We're also going to do virtual phone one-on-one calls. November and December, we're going to give this a try. A couple days a week, we'll do office hours, and you're going to be able to come on and book 15 minutes, and we'll have an interview questions for you, and we'll see how that goes. If people like that, we'll continue that on throughout the life of the project. And then the next public meeting will be in this room on Tuesday, January 28th. And we will have a lot of really good data there here for that event. Oh, and also I got some pop-ups. I'll be in the lobby and base. Madeline gave me this great idea to, if you want to talk to the parents, go stand around while they're waiting for their kids and basketball to get picked up. And then I'm going to go down to Lone Peak and talk to as many teachers as I can. So we're really trying to get a demographic that hits every stratum. So thank you for that. And we're looking forward to this. It's been fun so far. And we as a community are impressing the team that does a good job.
Something I wanted to add to that is those 3 Tuesdays all have different times. So there will be one Tuesday where it's a morning, one where it's a midday, and one where it's an evening, I believe is what we decided to try and hit as many people as we can, because we know that not everybody can make it in the morning, not everybody can make it in the evening, and not everybody can make it in the middle of the day. So we really tried to mix it up to allow for as many people to attend as possible, but then again, with those 15-minute office hours, the idea is if those times also don't work for you, Meg and the team are available to you in a different format. So doing everything we can to get as many people as we can to engage in a positive, meaningful way for their community.
And all of this will be reevaluated and then will come out in the first part of the year with a new and improved and built upon engagement strategy. So thank you. Thank you for your thoughts and comments. And we've got a sign up sheet in the back so you can stay abreast of our emails that will go out, and we're looking forward to conversations.
Oh, go ahead, right here. Shoot.
Oh, I just wanted to mention, those dates are Mondays, so are you on Monday or Tuesday?
Well, the week of.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, when we built the slides, we weren't confirmed, and now we're confirmed.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Johnny, for letting us use your community room.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You have a really good staff. They keep you out of the loop on these things.
Jim Delzer again. Sarah, I want to thank you for clarifying the terminology there. And I noticed that incorporation came up a couple of times yet in the slides here. And I just get this feeling that that is the main focus of this study. My question is, what other forms of governance are being evaluated through this whole process? So that people have an idea that it's not just incorporation.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I have spent so many hours working on this that I'm going to take this one. So really, I think many of you remember that a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago now, there was a group of individuals who was interested in moving forward with some discussions related to incorporation. So what we are trying to do is understand for everybody. We don't want any group kind of to feel as though they're not being heard. So incorporation is certainly an option. It is the one that most people want to talk about and most people want to understand. And so incorporation is one. What would happen if I created a new unicorn and made my own county? That's an option, right? Like there are a number of options. We don't even know them all yet. Could you do something different with the resort area district, right? There's a million ideas that float out around there. And so incorporation is something that we at least want to be able to say, it is something that everybody knows could be a possibility for Big Sky that's been widely publicized for years. So it is on the table in the discussion, but other forms are as well. Incorporation is just kind of the most widely known other option. The other option is honestly staying exactly the same, right? Like that will also be an option on this. Really, the idea is to get facts so that if groups do want to move forward with anything like a new county or incorporation, that all of the facts are sitting out on the table and that people like you and me can make an informed decision based just on facts, not on anything else. So really, incorporation, county, keeping it the same, creating a different resort area, all of those things are on the table, and I would bet that even more things would be on the table. Does that answer your question?
And we don't want to wash incorporation. We want that word to be in the conversation because it could be one of the options that the community might want to decide. So we're not going to greenwash that word out of the story.
I think everybody here knows my email. I receive a lot of emails from a lot of you. A lot of you also know my cell phone number. So if you would like to have more discussions, we are here, whether it's you want to talk to Meg, whether you want to talk to me. We do have an entire subcommittee. I think a lot of you listen to us talk about it in other resort area meetings. There are a number of people on that subcommittee that are community members. So I would assume that most, if not all, would be willing to talk to you more about this. It has been a really great collaborative effort with a lot of people, a lot of really smart people who want to be as helpful as they can to this community. And so we're always open to talk.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay. Move on to the next agenda item, Dr. Crick. Road bridges discussion, Commissioner Bill Todd.
Thank you. I'll try to make up as much time as I can, Kevin.
We have time.
Very simple update. Jack Creek Bridge number 4 was replaced. It was perhaps the lowest quality bridge that was in that corridor. The construction on that finished up last month. The total cost of the project was $937,000 and $115. And there is one more bridge to be replaced. That's Jack Creek Bridge number 5. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, it's not in bad enough condition for the state to consider it to be a priority to fund it outright. So then the next 4 to 6 years, either again, fortunately or unfortunately, or how we look at it, either beavers will attack it and we'll have to replace it, or they'll still have a functional bridge. It's an old Forest Service timber bridge. It's in good shape. It's not by any means a bottleneck going through that corridor. That would be the giant rock outcroppings that will, block any sort of two-way traffic at different points. So, not a tremendous priority, but it's on our radar. We grade all of our bridges every year by the state, and there are some others on the western side of the county that are in far worse shape, and those are going to take priority here for at least this next cycle and probably the cycle after that. But yeah, we're aware of it, we're working on it, and I guess fingers crossed, however we want to replace, not replace, whatever. So that's the update there, and then give me the nod, Mr. Chair. For Big Sky Trails Recreation and Parks District, first, I would like, whether he likes it or not, I'm going to ask you to stand up and take a round of applause because he kept us on task. Made sure that this all went through. Meg O'Leary also assisted, so we have a round of applause. And the item here is an MOU. I've had ongoing discussions with our county attorney's office regarding the creation of an MOU to shepherd the assessment on an annual basis, as we can only assess on an annual basis. The current consensus in the county attorney's office is that an MOU sends the wrong message in conjunction with the resolution of intent and resolution system that we have to use to make these annual assessments. So right now, we're going to continue to lean hard on people like Al to help us get through it this every year. And fingers crossed that DOR cooperates so we can get everything done on schedule. We were very lucky this year. I mean, it seemed like it went down to the wire, but we will make sure that the assessment goes through, and provided there isn't a huge amount of objection, which seems very unlikely, it will continue indefinitely. So, thank you very much.
Okay, any further questions or discussion on that?
Hey, Commissioner Todd, I have a quick question about Jack Creek Road bridges. If we say like folks up on the mountain were to get an emergency communication to progress down that road, is it in any shape to handle the amount of traffic that would need to go through there in emergency?
Unless you're taking a semi down, yeah, you're used for it. It's posted. Actually, no, that one's not even posted because it's in such good shape. So the Jack Creek Bridge 4 wasn't posted, I believe. Not that anyone really heeds any warning on those signs, and people go through regardless. So I've seen large trucks go over the old timber bridges, and it's much heavier than passenger vehicle. So yeah, it can handle traffic purposes, and moonlight in conjunction with our emergency management system and our sheriff's office, those gates would be open and it would be accessible.
Any further question, comment?
I have one more comment, and that was just in case anyone doesn't already know, I have my office hours tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Water Sewer District, because I do every month. So I guess moment. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that kind of ends the agenda on the old business. New business is local option motor vehicle tax. Chairman McFarland.
Hello again. Talking about
more things on your ballot list. So back when counties were allowed to place their own option for motor vehicle registration tax, motor vehicle registration in the treasurer's office for all county vehicles, you were allowed to, like Zach described earlier, kind of boilerplate decision at that point was that you could have 0.5%, 0.5% local option tax on those motor vehicle registrations. The allowance for maximum is 0.7%. But you can only go from 0.5 to 0.7 of the voter vote. So this is something that Commission has been talking about as one of the only real options that we would have for revenue for road construction in Gallatin County for years, ever since I've been a commissioner. We've been kind of looking for an optimal time to place that on and make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row to have kind of a capital improvement plan that described kind of our largest needs for transportation infrastructure, so that we can tell everybody with a straight face that we have way more needs than there is in our capital improvements. There's a great mechanism in state government through property tax collection for local governments to improve roads. We almost essentially completely rely on pass downs from Montana State, which is pretty lean and comes on 5-year cycles. And then through federal government grants that are also generally filtered through state MDT. Local governments don't have very many good options for investing in transportation infrastructure at all, but we have an enormous amount of roads, as you might imagine. There's the state highway system, the state secondary system, and then everything off of that that isn't in a town or city is a county road. Nowadays, about each mile of road that we would go to county standards is about $2 million a mile. And we have about $500,000 to $1 million a year in capital savings that we put aside for road improvement projects. So a lot of our intersection improvement projects, which are kind of our priorities for safety, large intersections in the county, generally those can cost $5 or $6 million, which would take us 12 years to save to do an intersection. And we are bringing intersections on as being, we have a lot of intersections with a lot to be desired for safety improvements. A lot more of those are coming online faster than once every 12 years. So this is really one of the only mechanisms that we can put forward to the voters to say, if you would be willing to allow us to collect another 0.2% of the motor vehicle tax, it would result in a pretty large amount of revenue for us to be able to plan for infrastructure improvements. To give you some estimates about what that is today, that 0.5% in the last year brought in about $11.5 million. Now there's a distribution formula with that money. When we collect all that money, it's county government through the treasurer's office, but it has to be distributed to local municipalities as well. So the county keeps 70% and 30% is distributed to our 5 states and towns. This additional 2% we estimate, had we had that in the last year, would have resulted in about $4.5 million more in collection, meaning about $1.5 million of that went back to our 5 cities and towns. The other 3 we could have kept for ourselves. So that, just in general round terms, to give you an expectation of what that allows us to do, we'd be able to build about 1.5 million or a 1.5 miles of highway, 2-lane county standard collector road in Gallatin County every year with that additional amount, or we could do one major intersection improvement every 2 years with that additional amount. So that's the general broad strokes. I'm sure there are questions about that.
I have a quick question. Since Big Sky is not a city or a town, would we be a part of your 70% to work on our roads? Because our roads your county roads, like MT-64?
This is going to be a generally dissatisfying answer for the county government about Big Sky infrastructure. Your main corridors are state roads, not incorporated, so there is no pass down, and we don't have any county roads that we have in what people here consider as Big Sky.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or?
I see somebody in the back. While you're getting her the mic. One thing that I thought was interesting that came up in, I think when you were here the other night, is that Montana is, or maybe our area, a lot of people like to register their vehicles from out of state because we are relatively inexpensive compared to other states. Is that?
It's a very intriguing thing that we've begun to understand over the last several years. Honestly, it came from noticing every morning when we walk into the county courthouse, the number of Idaho plates that we have parked in front of our courthouse. We started to ask questions about how many of these out-of-state plates are transferred to being Montana licensed, and found that it's an enormous number of plates. And that led us down a rabbit hole to understand that there are incorporated companies in Montana now that are taking advantage of the fact that we have the cheapest license registration in the region in the West. And so if you buy a luxury vehicle in California, Idaho, Colorado, Texas, you can send that title to a company here in Montana. They'll register it for you as part of their corporation and then send you your title back. You can save tens of thousands of dollars on luxury vehicles registering them in Montana. That's why most of the large fleet organizations that have vehicles in our surrounding states bring all of their titles to Montana to license their vehicles. So we're doing a large amount of titling for out-of-state vehicles and luxury vehicles, especially because usually the luxury tax in other states would be so large. It's just another way that kind of falls into that narrative that we talk about how to capture kind of out-of-state dollars, tourism dollars, and kind of people kind of taking advantage of our economy here. This is one of those ways that we could kind of force multiply the amount of money we gather in our vehicle tax that would not all come from local citizens. A large amount of it would come from out-of-state citizens. And logically, I would anticipate most of you are thinking, well, does this grow to an amount that it would start to disincentivize that type of behavior? Not even close. It doesn't even put us close to how much it costs to register vehicles in other states. Yeah, thanks for that leading question.
So my question is that after 30 years of living here, I still can't figure out what's a county road versus I mean, I know the state highways, but how do you differentiate? And you said there's no county roads in Big Sky, so are they all just HOA roads, or how does that work?
Okay, yeah, this is great. Great civics education opportunity. Most of what we think of as county roads that are on our county maintenance program are most of what we kind of think of as naturally occurring roads or section line roads. Most of those large collectors that have existed forever follow mostly section lines or large property boundaries that are historically placed. Everything that has been created since then because of the subdivision of property were created as a trade for the ability to break your property into smaller pieces. So when you break your property, you're expected to give some trade in public benefit for public health and safety. All of the subdivision up here, whether it was through certificate of survey or through subdivision and planning act, both for major or minor subdivision, all the roads dedicated to that process are public roads. We require in Gallup County that they are publicly dedicated for the use of the general public, but they are not taken on as county maintenance responsibility roads. We want to create new neighborhoods. We say you have to have a road and access to every one of those homes, but we don't take on the responsibility for that. That within our county required covenants, you must create some form of civil contract between the owners of those lots for the maintenance of those roads if you want to have a subdivision. So there weren't any naturally occurring county roads up here in this meadow that were long-standing county roads. They were Montana highways, and then everything that was created after that to supply access to the subdivision property. So a lot of our transportation system all over the county, enormous amount of the pavement is public access county road, but not county maintenance responsibility.
Madison County is a little bit strange in that regard. And then we do have county roads in Big Sky, but they are actually maintained by rural improvement districts. A lot of the roads are inside of subdivisions up across the county line. And they were all turned into county roads in about 1975 or so, back when the Big Sky Corporation was still based in DC and long before I was alive. There's one little tiny slice that we're still arguing about whether it's an RID or not, or whether it was a DOR error, and I like that's DOR error, but we are a bit different than Gallatin County in that we do have county roads, but the maintenance is provided for by rural improvement districts. So just full disclosure.
Lifelong learning, coming to joint county commission meetings, you learn a lot.
Just the fact that I was maybe able to succinctly explain that to you took me 6 years to living in this job. And I fear just to not kind of tag on to what just said there. That is, we have the ability also to available in state law, the creation of rural improvement districts, right? So every time we, for a couple decades now, every time we approve a new subdivision, one of the county required covenants within the subdivision approval is that the residents of that subdivision waive their right to protest the creation of a rural improvement district. We have not ever exercised that in Gallatin County, where we have created a rural improvement district top down that's initiated by your government. But it's beginning to look a lot more enticing when we look at large areas that don't have a lot of infrastructure or have not had any long-term planning for how to replace aging infrastructure, or how to, let's say, enact our alternative transportation plans like path systems and trail systems. Those would benefit large areas of county, but we don't have any new development coming online that would facilitate the extension of a lot of those services. We have major county road systems that have pretty much been built out generations ago. There really isn't any new redevelopment opportunity for us to kind of exact improvement of those roads through subdivision. They're just going to be there. Baxter Road, which is one of the major roads that runs through the middle of the valley down there, is a couple of miles of it has long since been developed, and none of those developments really paid to improve that road. So we're left with, what would we do today with the mechanisms we have at hand for improving a road that we don't have any revenue for, don't have any ability to pave or rebuild or construct? Could you be through the creation of new RIDs, gathering large amounts of people together in an area of benefit, defining that and creating an RID for it, or increasing the motor vehicle tax, give us a few more $100 to do roads.
Go ahead.
Curious if that,
1 second, sorry.
no one would ever willingly give you my.
I'm just curious if there were to be a voted on tax increase for motor vehicles, is there anything that prevents that fund for then being used for things other than roads and bridges? I've just seen that go a little bit awry in other places where it's supposed to be allocated specifically for road improvements and it ends up going into other projects. So in that ballot, is there a protection against that being allocated elsewhere?
Very good question. Your current county commission and past county commissions are usually very mindful about things they set up and how don't necessarily want to tie the hands of future commissions or tie decisions for a lot of the things we do, but in sometimes we do want to. So you're right, it isn't described in state law that this motor vehicle tax be used for transportation infrastructure. It is a general fund item that can go directly into the county general fund, the city general funds, the town general funds. But we did tie our hands a bit in the way that we described the ballot language and the resolution that we passed to put this on the ballot. We said that we would use this additional money for transportation infrastructure. So in the future, if a county wanted to then put this money just into their general fund to pay for into the general fund service, they wouldn't be able to unless they went back to the voters and re-described what they were use that money for, because we have it in the actual resolution defining the ballot language and in the ballot language you'll see on the ballot.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions, comments? Any other public comment on anything? Well, I just What's the mic?
So first of all, thanks you guys for coming up and doing this and opening it up to the public. Really appreciate it. One question I have, my taxes went up a little over 25% this year. My neighbors probably more than that. I hear a lot of discussion about going for more funds and changing tax structures. Where's that extra 25 to 35% going from the state that, that's been collected? I hear about all these projects. Like I said, they're all worthwhile, but they all come with a price. What is the county doing? Go after the state for some of that money, because like I said, my taxes went up a lot. Everybody's in this room did. I hear my friends talking about rent going up, so the owner's going to pay the taxes. So where's that going? And what are the two counties going to do as far as that goes?
I'm happy to start to talk about that. Trying to watch and participate in like a DOR education session, you begin to understand why this takes an hour and a half to explain. It shouldn't be that complicated. It isn't really that complicated for us to explain from our perspective. It can sound a little bit assembling though, or dodging, right? We as local governments are very well capped within state law, 1510-420. We're really used to citing this section of state law that our general fund can only grow at half the rate of 3-year average of inflation. That means county government, by definition, cities and counties are required to shrink relative to the value of the dollar. The way that any county gets any additional money over their inflation rate, half that inflation rate, is through new growth. So in a county like ours, there's a lot of new taxable property that comes on in any given year. A lot of newly taxable value in the county. But for us, us in Flathead County, the largest, fastest growing counties in the Intermountain Northwest, that still only results for us in the last year, in a really gangbuster year, for $900,000 in new tax to our general fund. So your general operating funds for government is not the thing that's growing at the rate that your taxes grow. We just have to keep saying that. County government is not growing their budget at the rate that everybody's seeing on their taxes. When you get your tax bill, it has our name at the top. It says that we're collecting that entire tax bill, but that's because we're the entity empowered to collect all your taxes and distribute it to all the different districts. In Gallatin County, you'll see a pie chart that our treasurer has implemented to show kind of the distribution of taxes, and then breaks it out by color and shows you what special districts, like fire districts and schools, even things down to like cemetery districts, mosquito districts, television districts. Those are things created by people for themselves, but they're not part of general county government. What we saw in the last cycle with reappraisal is that the things that aren't capped by 15 are voted mills and voted levies. So anything that has been voted for in the past for schools, new school bonds, new district bonds. For us, the examples are search and rescue levy, the new rest home levy that was voted on in the last cycle to help us keep our county rest home, our 911 levy. They say search and rescue, rest home, 911, and open space, our open space levy. Those aren't capped by half the rate of inflation. They go directly proportional to the increase in your property value. So those are the types of things that grow. The biggest of all of those, by far, is the 95 mils for education. That was what the counties gathered together and found the state about last year. You'll remember that the Supreme Court said that we were wrong, and the state was entitled to collect all 95 of those. In Gallatin County, the difference between what we thought was fair to allow on our tax bills for the state 95 or the state equalization bills for education, and what the state ended up winning in court and taking for our citizens was more than $13 million. That's larger than any of the other mills that we have that we collect.
I'll echo as far as county government's concerned, I look at it as a feature, not a bug, that we are somewhat forced to cut costs in relation to the value of the dollar on an annual basis or on a reassessment basis. We spend less with every cycle simply because we don't receive as much money as the state does. One of the great joys of my life is not being treasurer, so I don't have to field all of these phone calls. But the pie chart really does do a good job demonstrating all of that, and I have to take a little victory lap on the 95 mils thing, because we decided to place our difference in escrow, just on the case though, so we wouldn't have to do a second assessment, but pat myself on the back for that.
Yeah, so that was brilliant. Had I to do it over again.
Okay, and just, I have actually, and it was probably my tax statement here, but it's always interesting to have it on. Of course, in my gallery, sort of constituent acts. Whatever year this was, it doesn't say and that, but total county that we got was on the tax bill. This tax statement was 13.21%. Then as Scott has said, 9.85% for permissive mills, for other mills, search and rescue, fire departments, and things like that. The biggest cost is, for education is a tremendous one. So just an interesting fact that counties all, I believe, try to run as fiscally responsible as we can. So is there anything else? Any questions or comments? I have just one little bit of FYI information. In Madison County, we're lucky because we have a couple of retired foresters there that used to work for the U.S. Forest Service. So we get, and one gentleman that's went way up chain and into DC. So we get information ahead of time. We got information from the gentleman yesterday that here a couple of years ago, the Forest Service was, we're going to get all this money from the Forest Restoration Act, I believe. Billions. It has somehow disappeared. So back then we were going to do a major hiring. Now the hiring has all gone away. Funds have been cut. This information that we got yesterday is that the folks that are part-time and temporary help clean the outhouses and all the trash, work on the trails and all that. They're not going to be hired. It won't affect firefighters thing. But it's just something to be. I've already contacted Senator Dane, contacting Senator Tester, because the last thing we need to do is let our force go to hell, excuse my French, that they have the last 40 years. So just a bit of FYI, it's coming down the road, gonna really impact things like that. So it won't get done unless the other folks that are permanent full-time employees have time to do it, and that's probably not gonna happen. So I want to start writing our representatives, let them know. Okay.
A couple of quick closing thoughts, Mr. Chair. I first of all want to welcome our newest BSRAD board member, Michelle Kondorski. So thanks, Michelle, for sitting up there. This is a heck of a first meeting tonight. If you attended last night and of course you guys are all here today, all I can say is, wow, this community is amazing. The stuff that's going on is just absolutely jaw-dropping. And so really a big expression of gratitude to this room and all the people in this that are making things happen at Big Sky. And thank you so much. And along the lines of gratitude, a huge thanks again to our partners at Madison and Gallatin County. You guys have truly been good partners, and we look forward to really leaning into that over the next few years as we try to tackle some of these monumental projects with the capital improvements plan. So thank you guys for being here today once again and supporting Big Sky.
Motion to adjourn? Yeah, we can have a motion to adjourn. Second? Yeah, all in favor, aye. Aye, motion carried.